So let's go back to the other. Okay. So unlike most of Mexico, it says, which is known for its patriarchal social structure, Huchitan has a matriarchal structure. The Zapotec women run the markets, control household expenses, and are the curanderas, the healers. In Juchitan, Iturbide photographed women demonstrating at a political rally, selling iguanas and crabs, and enjoying evenings out in the cantinas. Very, very interesting. All right, so this woman presumably is selling these iguanas for food, but why the iguanas are on her head, I really cannot say. So I'm open to suggestions if anyone has.
An old Northwest Indian tradition is to have a carved wooden mask or something that's on the head.
Yes.
Probably
Yeah,
everywhere.
These actually look like
Paper.
living iguanas.
No, they look like paper. Well, I don't know.
Who knows? Maybe they're so detailed.
There are detail now that I look at them.
Yeah.
I think they're real iguanas.
They look real. Maybe they're already dead and they're
Might be dry.
Yeah, real former iguanas.
yeah. That might right. Exactly.
Late iguanas.
Exactly. So anyways, so this is Nuestra Señora de las Iguanas means our Lady of the Iguanas, right? And Nuestra Señora de of something or other, right? Usually means Our Lady of a town, right? So it's a religious designation, right? So there was one here like Nuestra Señora de Guadalupe. Right, Our Lady of Guadalupe
in Mexico.
Yeah, also in Mexico, exactly. All right, so let's read this. So after Graciela's Iturbide's 1979 photograph, okay. All right, so my warm morning skin bristles in the jungle hut's frigid shower as shrill chirps trill off my inner ear's hi-hat. What tropical bird lurks outside this screenless window? I imagine lime green wings, a feathered turquoise face, but when it squeak rattles into a hisp that creeps behind me like a shadow, I turn to stare straight into the onyx eyes of an iguana, iridescent crown gleaming down on my miserable wet head, tail coiling the shower pole, tongue reaching for my splashed shoulder. I slink back, leave dirt in the bends of elbows and knees, relinquish a chance to feel eyes licked into the back of my head. I am not La Nuestra Señora de las Iguanas, donning her Zapotec headdress of protruding limbs about to leap, folded faces, triple chins, not Iturbide's pebble squint refusing to blink as it latches onto the queen of Juchitan so far away, yet so near to where I stand dripping on this poured concrete floor. All right.
Wow.
So yeah, I would say that given all the internal rhymes in this poem, it's even more doubtful that it's that it's a translation because it's usually translations can't do that amount of assonance because they're limited by obviously by what the words mean. All right, so let me read through that one more time, and then everyone can take turns just sort of reflecting on it if you're interested in doing so, and then we can go through. We can actually have a look at this. There's a little blurb that she wrote. Some of you already read it, I think, but we can look at that and see what that does to illuminate. Okay, so Nuestra Señora de las Iguanas. My warm morning skin bristles in the jungle hut's frigid shower as shrill chirps trill off my inner ear's hi-hat. What tropical bird lurks outside this screenless window? I imagine lime green wings, a feathered turquoise face, But when its squeak rattles into a hiss that creeps behind me like a shadow, I turn to stare straight into the onyx eyes of an iguana, iridescent crown gleaming down on my miserable wet head, tail coiling the shower pole, tongue reaching for my splashed shoulder. I slink back. I leave dirt in the bends of elbows and knees, relinquish a chance to feel eyes licked into the back of my head. I am not La Nuestra Senora de las Iguanas, donning her Zapotec headdress, of protruding limbs about to leap, folded faces, triple chins, not Iturbide's pebble squint, refusing to blink as it latches onto the queen of Juchitan, so far away, yet so near to where I stand, dripping on this poured concrete floor. All right. So yeah, maybe these are, makes me think that these are maybe, what's the word I'm looking for? Stuffed, right? Taxidermied
It might be.
iguanas, yeah.
They wouldn't hold still for what they're doing.
No,
Right.
no, definitely not. So yeah, so maybe she's not selling them. Maybe they're taxidermied. I don't know. All right. So reflections on the poem. Sort of first couple times through.
Why did you choose it?
That's a good question. I don't know if I have an answer, Sandy, beyond just that I found it to be an interesting poem, as well as it being an interesting idea, right, for poetry. Ekphrasis, I think, is really kind of fascinating. The idea that we could write a poem, right, based on a picture. And what I really like about this one, what I thought was really interesting, right, is that it's almost, the poem is sort of a little bit of a story about Ekphrasis, right? She has this experience and recognizes in a certain way her how far she is, how different she is from this woman in the picture. That unlike this woman in the picture who has these iguanas sitting on her head, right? This Brenda Cardenas does not want an iguana on her head. She doesn't even want an iguana in her shower, right? She wants to get away, right, from the iguana. And so, but
the whole thing paints a vivid picture.
Yes.
It paints a vivid picture. And you can imagine some of us has been in those jungle showers and a little thing scampers by,
Right.
Not as big as an iguana, but some little chameleons and stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
And iguanas, I just learned the other day from the crossword puzzle that iguanas are considered chicken of the trees. So I guess if tuna is chicken of the sea, right, then iguana is chicken of the tree. And I guess you would sell it alongside of crab because I guess it's pretty good eating for that part of the world. So
Okay, that's interesting.
I never knew that. I had no idea.
Well, it's just like the Peruvians eat guinea pigs,
Right.
which kind of turns us off because they're
Other
awfully
people
sweet.
in the French eat pigeons. So
And rabbits
and snails.
Right. Although we eat rabbits too. I was
We eat rabbits.
rabbit is not kosher, but I was at a restaurant the other day with my son, and he decided to get rabbit. Not sure if he liked it or not. But when I was a child, in my family, we were not allowed to eat duck or rabbit because it would those foods would make my sister cry. She was very soft-hearted.
Well, when I was on a tour of Europe, we were having a stew, and they told this one young woman that was on the trip that we were going to have rabbit stew. And when they delivered it, there was no evidence that it was rabbit, but one guy at the end of the table went boom, boom.
Oh God. All right. So yeah. So that, I mean, if there's an answer to the question, Sandy, that I can articulate, I think it's because the combination of poetry, photography, and personal experience, I thought was really fascinating. A way of sort of formulating one's, sort of transforming one's own experiences, not only into art, but also art that explicitly has a kind of conversation with other art, which I thought was really a fascinating thing to do, and it would be a fascinating exercise, I think, for us, at some point, to even do some sort of writing along these lines, to remember, to remember a poem. I mean, I'm sorry, to remember a picture, to take a picture that has some associations for us, and then to relate that poem, that picture somehow to some experience in our life. So anyway, so any other thoughts about this before we go and read what the author wrote?
Scroll it down just a couple of lines. And I turned to stare straight into the onyx eye of an iguana. Okay.
Yeah, but okay, she's performing a ritual. She's taking a shower in the morning.
Yeah.
Yes.
And she's having this fantasy about something beautiful outside
Yes.
the window.
Yes.
And suddenly it's not. It's something that's threatening.
Yeah.
But then she starts thinking about a different ritual of the woman carrying the iguanas on her head. And I don't have the full poem here, but she's sort of, yeah, she's not Our Lady of the Iguanas.
Right.
What she wants to do is get away from it.
Right.
She abandons part of her shower scrubbing. Doesn't do her elbows and knees.
Yeah.
She's unnerved.
Yeah, she
Yeah,
is.
that's the word. That's the
exactly.
word.
She's unnerved, and it's really interesting to think, for me to wonder, was at what point did she have this sort of association with La Nuestra de las Iguanas, right? Was it something that popped into her head the instant that this situation happened, or was it something about like, oh, an iguana wanted to jump on my head. Wait, that's just like that picture where the woman has like 8 iguanas sitting on her head.
I'm not going to participate.
I'm not. I guess I'm not
there.
that lady. I guess I guess I can. So who has the folded faces and the triple chins? That's the iguanas, right?
Iguanas.
Yeah, that's the iguanas, because the woman is very does not have folded face or triple chin. She's quite she's got very smooth skin. But she also is unblinking, or appears to be in this picture.
Yeah.
It does appear that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm so fascinated by this idea of now I kind of wish I had thought to look at, well, what the heck is La Señora de las Iguanas? Is it something more than what? Is it just, is it that this woman, Iturbide, sort of made this up, right? Or does it have, or is it something?
I would bet it is something, because this looks like something very carefully constructed.
It does, yes.
Part of some kind of ceremony.
Right. All right. So let's just take a quick
See what Google has to say.
quick look about this. My kid wanted Indian food yesterday, so that's why we have Indian food menus on my computer here.
Actually, that first one sounds kind of good.
It does, doesn't it?
Oh, but it has chicken. Yeah, well,
It does have chicken, but I'm sure we could.
you can take the chicken away.
I found her. I did it. I Googled it and there she
Oh, wait,
is.
here we are, Brooklyn Museum.
Yeah,
Wow.
well, that's the where I got the picture. Let's see what this one says.
A woman named Zobeida, Zobeida, titled Nuestra Senora de las Iguanas.
Did you want to share it with us?
Oh, here you go.
Smithsonian Magazine.
Okay, so the captures Zobeida, a woman with a crown of iguanas perched on her head. The woman looks past the camera in a self-assured, almost defiant way. The background is slightly out of focus to keep the attention on this woman caught somewhere between the everyday and the mythical. All right, but she doesn't say what.
Doesn't say what it's about.
Right, yeah, it doesn't say why. What's the point of?
Yeah, now she's into herself.
Right, which is fine. I mean, it's like that's the point of this thing. But she's the vendor with it. Okay, so she's the vendor with that halo of iguanas. Very interesting.
Hi, that was an accident.
These are not. These may be dead iguanas. But
Right.
they're about to be eaten. So they're
Right.
not
Class that the
taxidermy.
rabbi's putting on right now.
He says she carries the iguanas out of practicality, their beady eyes and drooping jowls soon to be made into stews and tamales. So they're not
They're
taxidermy.
not taxidermied.
Nope.
Oh, wow.
Oh, Medusa.
Yeah, I
Medusa.
hadn't thought of that, but that's right. That's really cool.
Definitely is a parallel there.
Yeah,
There's Medusa head,
right. This is right. This is
Yeah.
Perseus. with the head of
Perseus with
Medusa.
Medusa. Yeah, right here. Let's see here. So I mean, I guess it's really interesting. This woman is a vendor. She is a vendor
Apparently.
of iguanas, and so my assumption then is that these iguanas are dead, because if they weren't, we would at least one of them would have their tongue out, right? I mean, they're
I would
constantly.
think that, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like a someone who sells chickens, wearing a crown of chickens on their heads, as opposed to putting the chickens in a sack or in a box.
Yeah.
I mean, right? People often put stuff on their heads to carry it, right? So why not iguanas? Okay, so very, very interesting. All right, so that clears it up. So basically, it sounds to me like this: the artist, right, the photographer, is the person who decided that this was somehow sufficiently, even though it's a very quotidian image. It's just a woman in a marketplace with the stuff she's selling on her head. It's not any kind of a religious ritual or any kind of remarkable event. It reminded her somehow of something religious, right? So she gives it this name of La Señora de las Iguanas, which is it seems very funny. I'm not really sure if I understand why she would give it that title. It seems somehow, what's the word?
Well, it does sort of look like a crown.
It does.
And I'm trying to remember no. There's an irreverent description
Yes.
of a phenomenon that you see a lot around here, which is called Mary on the half shell.
Right.
Trying to remember, does Mary have a crown in those statues?
That is a good question. I mean, or Mary in the bathtub, right? I mean, you get a lot of.
Yeah, that's probably the other.
Right. Let's see. So we can Google that as well, right? So Mary on the half shell.
Well, for sale.
There we go.
Oh, that's
No,
the half
she's,
shell.
Bathtub Madonna.
yeah,
So-
she's wearing a hood, but not a crown.
Right, right. And you would
All
think,
right.
though, right, that but I think what you're thinking, oh, here's really a half shell. Oh my gosh, you see this one?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. That's-
It's really a half. I mean, that is really something.
Must be a seaside community.
It must be. That's very funny. And here's one with really a
Oh, but
bathtub.
wait a minute. Here, no, she's still just wearing.
Well, look at the Santa's hat on.
Yeah,
hat on that
they
one.
put a different kind of crown on it.
It's kind of weird.
Mm.
Here we go.
But
Here's one.
basically, she's not wearing a crown. Basically,
No, but I think that
wearing a
this
Middle Eastern.
crown, but I think that
She
doesn't.
looks almost as though she could pull it as a veil over her face if necessary.
Yes, but I wonder though. But doesn't Mary usually have a halo?
Yes.
Yes.
Right? So that would be something along these lines. I would imagine is that
Yeah.
yeah. Anyway, but that is really. But it's. I mean, I just find the picture just to be remarkable.
Yeah.
And it's funny. And it's funny when I first looked at the picture, I was not into it. And actually, I had a note from a congregant in Cambridge saying that she loved the poem but hated the picture. And I said I wasn't crazy about the picture, but I also really like the poem. And so, but now that we're talking about this picture and sort of examining it in relationship to the poem, I'm actually liking the picture more and more. All right, so let's look at what Brenda Cardenas has to say about this poem. Okay, and then also I'm also fascinated that she mentions this picture as well. But I'm not sure if I understand exactly how this picture is related. It would be interesting to think about that.
They talked about the woman dressed in indigenous costume.
Yes.
Carrying this modern Zoom box.
Right. Exactly.
Which was a thing, apparently,
I guess, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
but also looking like an angel.
Looking like an angel, right? An angel with a boombox. I mean, so right. I mean, there's a kind of off-kilter spirituality, I guess, that links these two pictures, right? That these women are both just doing their everyday thing, and somehow in the context of photography, right, they become spiritualized. There's a right. There's a kind of spiritual that is filtered through the photographer's Catholicism, I would imagine. And so on one hand, it's kind of funny, and on the other hand, it's sort of like Mary on a half shell, but it's also like Mary on a half shell. It's also very, very serious. So I grew up in an extended family that included a number of artists and artisans. So I have always had a deep appreciation for the visual arts. Then in the late 1990s, I worked for the National Museum of Mexican Art in Chicago, where I became captivated by photographer Graciela Iturbide's work, particularly Nuestra Señora de las Iguanas and Angel Woman, Angel Mujer, I think is how it goes.
That's this picture, Angel Woman right there.
Yeah, Angel Woman. But
and Brenda's the one that was in the shower.
Yes.
Yeah, Brenda's the showering woman, exactly. So here's a Mujer Angel, yeah. Desierto de Sonomas, I think is. All right.
Day of the Dead.
Yeah.
Down below, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, this one here, yeah.
That's kind of odd. Look at that. Wow.
Oh, yeah. It must be Day of the Dead. Yeah. And this one is Mujer Angel. First looks, Mujer Angel. This is another of her pictures. So she's clearly into angels and stuff like this. So, all right. So, go ahead. Yeah, that's a kid.
Child, yeah.
All right, so before and especially since that time, I have been writing ekphrastic poems, which often feels like a collaborative process in response to various kinds of visual art, especially work by Latinx and Latin American artists. This poem also recounts an experience I had with an iguana when visiting Chichen Itza, the Mayan ruins in the Yucatan, which is on the other side of Mexico, right? I mean, it's very, very far away from Oaxaca, where I stayed in a thatched roof.
Not that far, actually.
No?
Well, it's all the way around the Gulf, and it's part of the Mexico that rises up.
Yeah.
Right. It might not be that far as the.
But it's also where it narrows down. So
yeah.
Not that far. I've been on a bus that went from Oaxaca to Merida, and it didn't take that long.
Oh, interesting.
We were in Chichen Itza and went back to Merida, through Merida we were in Cancun and went back through Merida to Chichen Itza. It seemed like it took forever. Wasn't that far, I guess, but it was a long drive.
Peninsula, right? Because that part of Mexico really has to. Oh, right, you're right. It's because it's much further south. I always forget. I always think of it being further north than it is.
Yucatan Peninsula comes around.
Yeah. No, I've been in that area a couple of times, once way back in the 50s and then another time in the.
Did you go to Chichen Itza, Naomi?
Yes, and
so all three of us have been there.
There are all kinds. I mean, everywhere you look, there's a Mayan ruin.
Yes.
Well, that big pyramid, that's the main one that had the chain up the middle of the steps. And those Mayans were really short, like 4 feet something, less than 5 feet. Anyway, it was tough going up. The steps were really high.
Yes.
They were very narrow. I had to turn my foot completely sideways, go up, and then coming down was really terrifying.
Yeah, well, there's a way of coming down that's not quite so scary. I did it in the 50s. I did not do it again in the.
Well, I don't think I'd do it again, but I use what I call the slalom approach. You go over and you turn from back and go down at an angle.
Right. You know, Yucatan, so Chichen Itza isn't that far from Oaxaca. You basically go through Tabasco and Veracruz, and then you're there. So it's not as far as I thought it was. That's neither here nor there. But anyway, that's her story. And so it is sort of a combination of her own life, which is obviously sort of primary, but filtered right through this experience of being, very closely connected to the photographs of this artist, and really, sort of seeing her and able to sort of, as Naomi put it, right, to sort of see this sort of off-kilter spirituality in her own life, right? That this is her ritual of washing in the morning, right? And there's all these sounds and this sort of intimation that there's this beautiful bird lurking around, but then it actually turns out, well, no, it's actually an iguana on my head.
Scary as heck.
And yeah, and I really interesting, right? The tongue is reaching for my splashed shoulder and like, no, I don't want, I don't want it.
Yes. Let me out of here.
Exactly. And she imagines this woman Zobeida, right, the subject of this photograph, as being the queen of Juchitán, right? And because in a way, right, that crown of iguanas renders her that in this really interesting way, even though she's just the iguana seller and not the queen probably at all.
But, donning her Zapotec headdress,
yes,
protruding limbs about to leap.
Yes,
That Yes, in one way, it is a headdress, it is an ornament, it is
Yeah.
some kind of thing.
And it's Zapotec, right? So it's not
Yeah.
it's not just a what's the word I'm looking for? It's not just an adornment, right?
Right. The
It's
specific tribal.
vested with this culture, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, it has a cultural significance, which it probably doesn't particularly in real life, but in the realm of art, it's gained that.
Yeah. And then not Herbie's pebble squint, refusing to blink as it latches onto the queen of Wahitan. Yeah, that last imagery is getting more fascinating.
Yeah. So what is pebble squint? It's the photographers, right?
Yes, it's Herbie.
It's the photographers. It's the photographer that's refusing to blink.
Yeah.
Not just the iguanas or the
It's the photographer.
Right. Yeah.
Well, according to my atlas, the Cancun is more than 150 miles from Meribah, and I can see Chichen Itza right there at the top of the Yucatan Peninsula.
Yeah.
I was trying to figure out on Google Maps how far it was, but Google Maps won't tell me.
Well, I just used my piece of paper and the guide on the atlas.
Yeah. But again, Chichen Itza is the place that everyone goes to. There are
That's right.
incredible Mayan ruins, and they keep, every time you dig up a hill in Central America, you find something Mayan buried beneath it.
Well, we went south along the peninsula too, where we were, but we saw another bunch of pyramids down there.
So actually, no, it's pretty far. To drive from Oaxaca to Chichen Itza is an 18 and a half hour ride. It's 1,500 kilometers. So that is not nothing.
Long, well, oh, wait a minute. We did stop in a couple. Yes, okay. Yeah.
It doesn't look like you. It looks like you can. It looks like you can't go directly though. It looks like you have to. I don't know why, but
that's because the Mexican highway system is a very interesting system.
Yes, I actually drove all the way from Saltillo to what is the name of that town that we went to? What is the name of it? Mazatlan.
Oh, I've been to Mazatlan.
Mazatlan, which is a beautiful town. And we drove through Durango, all the way from Saltillo, which was something like I forget exactly, but it was let's just say it was a long ride.
That's the whole length of the country.
Yes.
Well, Mazatlan's on the West Coast. I went there on my honeymoon.
Yeah.
Mexico City and Mazatlan.
Oh, that's really funny, Anne, because we were in Mexico for our au pair's wedding, and we took them on their honeymoon to Mazatlan. We rented a car and went all the way from Saltillo to Mazatlan, which was quite I said, it was quite a trip.
We started off in the Bahamas and then flew to
nice
Miami, and then we were on the West Coast and the wedding was in Kentucky, so we went east and then came back to West Coast to Mazatlan and then back to Portland.
So this was, I don't remember whether a Grand Circle or a Rhodes Scholar. Well, the first time I went on my own because I was a lot younger then, and sort of went hither and yon. I think it was also at the time when I think the internal Mexican airline had one airplane, and if it was this backed up the whole thing. So, but the last time,
so that was a 9.5 hour ride. So I remember that was a little crazy. But it was fun.
But again, just the way things had changed, Oaxaca had changed, Merida had changed. They're no longer small villages. Oaxaca has expanded halfway up the damn mountainside.
Wow.
It has become extremely commercial.
Mm-hmm.
which means I'm sure that people are making a lot more money than they were in the
Right.
50s. So as a
Oh, I'm
tourist,
sure.
you were sort of looking for what you had seen, and now you're seeing people who are more prosperous.
Right. Right.
Um, except that they still have tremendous political problems.
Oh, yes.
Oh, in the South, where for years people have been fighting to try to get titles to their land, and whoever comes up with the biggest bribe gets the title.
Oh, wow. Really?
And they've had, there's one, Chiapas has been in near rebellion for
Yes.
many
Yes, for a long
years.
time. I remember when Subcommandante Marcos was was heading, you know, had
Yeah.
articles written about him in the New York Times Magazine.
Yeah,
That was
yeah.
a while ago. Is that rebellion still going?
Well, again, I have not been there since the early 20 aughts.
Okay.
And
That's recent from when I was there.
That's more recent than the 50s.
yeah, but yeah, there are various areas down there where they've had tremendous troubles, and each new government that comes in says they're going to do something, and
Right.
each new government that comes in manages not to do anything.
There's a lot of corruption. My daughter was in Chiapas not too long ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've never been to Chiapas. I've only been to Cancun, which I didn't like, and to Saltillo and Mazatlan.
Mhm.
Saltillo, you would never go unless you had people there.
Mhm.
There's nothing, you know, sort of to attract, you know, a traveler. But Mazatlan is beautiful.
The whales use that area, the Gulf of what? Here it is. Gulf of California, between Baja California and Mexico, for birthing area.
They use
Go down
what?
there to give birth.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah.
But all right, so we're looking at these people and this poem, and I'm sort of beginning to wonder about what the economic background of some of these areas really is as we're talking about them.
Not very good, I'm sure.
You know, apparently this woman doesn't even have a basket to put her iguanas in.
Right.
Or I don't know, you wonder, just, you know, we look at it and say, oh, how interesting, how quaint, but the chances are that they would rather be living in some kind of apartment in Mexico City and have a decent job.
Yes.
Oh,
I mean, who knows? I mean, the when it came to when it comes to the angel woman, right? That was identified here, right, as an indigenous group that is very focused on maintaining their traditional ways.
Yeah.
On the other hand, talking about Juchitan, in Oaxaca, right? It doesn't say anything about, you know, any sort of desire to keep the old ways. It just mentions that the old ways were matriarchal rather than patriarchal.
Yeah.
Which is interesting.
Well, the Mayans are having a tough time all over Central America.
Yes, I would imagine.
Guatemala, the Civil War was slaughtering Mayan
Yes.
leadership left and right, and anybody else they could get their hands on. And I don't know, again, not having been there for umpteen years, I don't know the extent to which whatever Mayan culture was, and I suspect that it varied because it was such a widespread area.
Yeah.
Probably there are some areas that are very much trying to cling to what they remember,
Right.
their culture.
Yeah.
Despite the best efforts of various governments to wipe it out.
Sure.
Other areas where they're perfectly glad to go up and get these $5 a day jobs that are just across the border under NAFTA.
Exactly. Exactly. So I'm going to look up Yuchitan and see. Excuse the fact that my Google is in Russian for some reason. I at some point
I thought that looked like Russian.
at
Yeah.
some point I switched it first, and I don't even remember why or how. But now it's like only in Russian. But
Okay.
yeah, so this is Huchitan, and it has a terminal. It has a technological institute
Isthmus.
of the isthmus. So it's right near the sea in Laguna Superior. Oh, good. They're in English too. Okay.
Good.
Spanish. Yeah. So that is. So Santo Domingo, is that the big town in Oaxaca?
Oh God, let me try to remember. No, I think the big town is itself called Oaxaca.
Okay. So let's see. I don't know how to move it this way.
Oh, Coatzacoalcos.
Yeah, this is Chiapas here. This is Tabasco.
Yeah.
There we go. And here, Oaxaca. Oaxaca is here. Okay, so yeah, so the big city is Salina Cruz, but the biggest city is Oaxaca. So here's photos of this place. So yeah, I mean it definitely is its own city now, I guess.
That's a long way from Chichen Itza compared to where I was in Cancun.
Yeah. So
Boy.
here's pictures of Juchitán. I guess this is someone's photographs from a
Bandstand. Oh wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's pretty.
It is pretty. I saw something on television a night or so ago about Xochimilco. Wasn't very much though. I don't know. Went there while we were in Mexico City too.
Yeah. So well, you get an idea.
Well, that's the floating market. That's the
Gardens. That's
floating market. Yeah.
Okay. It seems like it's now in ruins.
the old city kind of. You know, the city was built on a swamp.
Yeah. So it's sinking and it has earthquakes.
Oh,
yes.
Fine.
Wow. So that's so this is but it's close to the wow. That's anyway. So you get the idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice flower.
What?
But anyway, this is so. Anyway, I kind of this is kind of fun to do these. It's sort of like exploratory zooms here.
Yeah.
But it means that
So
everyone needs to be on a screen in order to enjoy it. So
right there, the Zapotec headdress of protruding limbs about to leap. That would indicate to me that the iguanas were probably alive.
yeah. But,
Yes, of course they're alive.
well, I wondered, but I mean, I'm looking at this.
He's taking them to market, and people carry
So they
stuff
must
on their
be-
heads.
They must be immobilized then if they're alive. But I'm wondering.
I wouldn't want them on my head.
I'm wondering how, because lizards are all about their tongues, and none of the lizards has its tongue out.
Yeah.
That's what makes me think they're not alive. But I guess
You would also expect that they would be somewhat upset.
yes, I would imagine they would be upset. But I would imagine that they would, because they would be upset, they would have their mouths open and not closed.
Yes, exactly.
Even if they were otherwise immobilized.
Yeah, I mean, they would be in attack mode.
Right. You would think.
Trillium on her dress.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
But it's a marvelous picture. All right. Well,
Richard, but we're
thank
not
you very
really
much,
doing
everybody.
too much with the poetry.
well, I'm sorry.
We're not doing too much with the poetry.
Oh,
This is true.
Well,
You
we've
know,
gotten
that's what this is supposed to be all about.
well,
we've gotten an ethnic context for
right. We got into exploring where it came from and you know what it's around. So I'm imagining that structure that was that it looked like it had been destroyed in an earthquake. I imagine that's the structure that she's behind. That's behind her, but who knows?
But, you know, there's one other, she's talking about her miserable wet head.
Yes.
When you look at this
Shower.
photograph,
Yeah. Well, she was in the shower, taking a shower.
yes, but, you know, you compare the two heads.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
No, this woman is clearly not miserable in this picture. She's such a strong,
Comfortable.
resolute person. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it's past time, but thank you for your participation and for all you offered. And we will have we'll do something different next week with. So I think that we're not going to have. I was hoping to find a sub for Wednesday, but it looks like we're going to have to postpone postpone Jewish learning until the following week because something has popped up in my life. So.
Is that the 4 o'clock one or the
That's
7?
a 4 o'clock. The 7 tonight is on. 7 tonight is on. 4 o'clock on Wednesday is going to be off. And I'll come on. I'll come on to Zoom at 4 to let people know that. But because I've got another.
There's no. Okay, the David's thing is tonight.
David thing is tonight. Exactly.
There's not one on Wednesday night. Okay,
No,
that's
exactly.
good.
Okay.
All right. Thank
Rabbi.
you.
Have a pleasant day.
Good evening. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.